All right, take 30 seconds, chat it out. How might these colonies be different from a strictly motivational standpoint? The why. Why are they different?
Really, all they just put was they wanted to gain riches by getting rich, and they wanted to gain riches.
I saw that for the South's motivation was to get rich quickly. Northern colonies was for tolerance, and the colonies served as a government
Do the answer. 10 more seconds. Two, one, and done. All right. So we talked at great length on Thursday, and I gave you that line I'm going to use a lot, especially here in period 2 for our colonization of why you go somewhere impacts what you do when you go there. Right, that's good to get, because by the end of today, that's going to be really cemented into your brain, because you're going to have a lot of examples to pull from. A lot of examples. Because Thursday, you just had basically one general example. Right? They went to the southern colonies to get rich, so when they got there, they did things that would eventually make them rich. Not pay their labor. Cash crop plantation economies, etc. Look for gold. Didn't work, but that's the idea of trying to get rich. So here today, if we accept as a general class consensus that motivation for migration, why you migrate impacts the development of colonies when you get there, then how are we going to have some different ideas in the New England colonies, the far north, and the middle colonies? What is their motivation, and how might that create different types of identities than we saw in the South and Chesapeake regions? Let me hear from Kevin. Talk to me. From a motivational standpoint, what are these other groups of people trying to do here?
So, in New England,
Yes, thank you, sir. I like your language.
their motivations are mostly centered around religion, whether it be like religious tolerance or intolerance.
Okay, I like where you're going with that. So that when they go there, they're going to take actions that develop an identity built more on religion. Okay. Did we see anything about God or holiness or anything in those texts that we read on Thursday?
Yeah.
We did. Not really. Right? It was more about like survival and profit, etc. Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're not going to necessarily take actions that are going to be based on getting rich, but building society based on God. Is that what your argument is? Cool. Agreed. Anybody else want to build on that? That's the general idea I'm trying to get your heads around. That what your pull factor is, or what your push factor away from was, is going to impact the development of how it is you do what you do. Cool. So today's title, it is your third lecture of this here, period 2. We have today, which is going to touch on the settlement and growth of the northern colonies, so Middle and New England, those ones above Jamestown and Virginia. And it's not going to be identity rooted in cash crops. It's going to be identity rooted in community, religion, as was pointed out by Kevin, and trade. And when you don't have cash crops, you kind of need all these things to be successful. All right. Just looking forward a little bit, today we have this. Wednesday, we'll try to lock in our 3 colonial regions to make sure that we're really good and clear and straight there. Thursday, we will talk about colonial rebellions and the shift from indentured servitude to slavery, and some important examples of upheaval. That's Thursday. Next Monday, we'll hit on the 2 most important things that happen in the colonies early. The First Great Awakening, a religious revival, and the Enlightenment, which you guys should be moderately familiar with if Montes did half of his job last year, which is unlikely. And then next Thursday is your first test. I know, it comes quick. But period 2, it's period 1 and 2, is a moderately small chunk of what College Board expects. And you did so much of the heavy lifting over the summer with your chapters and with those organizers that your period 1 and 2 test won't be necessarily difficult or long. it just gets us set up nicely into period 3, where the stuff really starts happening. Where right now I'm talking about like big old windows of time, where starting period 3 gets a little more narrowed in and deep. We're talking about the road to the American Revolution, the creation of American systems of government. All that stuff is in period 3, and so I'd argue period 3 really is like the true foundation for everything we need to know going forward. So by next Thursday, we'll be done with period 1 and 2. You'll get a nice study guide to study off of. I'll assign a timeline like I do for every unit. That'll be due on test day. On test day, it's just your timeline that's due and your binder check that's due. Your test is on Thursday, and then we go from there. Any questions about where we've been or where we're going? Cool. Don't forget, starting this Thursday, I am openly happy to help you guys get ready for your test, which is 1 week from this Thursday. Cool. So here is your prompt. Slane, can you read it for us, please? Nice and loud.
Compare and contrast the 3 colonial regions, accounting for economic, political, and social similarities and differences.
Cool. So pretty straightforward prompt. Tell me, in these we're going to have the 3 regions, the South, the Middle, New England. How are they similar? How are they different? Economically, politically, and socially. All right. Go. So, maps. We'll start with a map because maps help us get our heads around what we're talking about, where we're talking about it, and where everything is. What I've learned in the past, I don't know, what feels like 30 years of teaching, is that high schoolers are really bad at geography. Really bad at geography. Where's your house from here? What direction is that? That way! Oh, it's that direction. Cool. Where's your house from here? What direction is that? It's that. Oh, it's that direction. Oh, it's over there. See, this one got the full over. That's south.
Because wait, no, last time I checked, my address says 142 East.
Yeah, because you're on. You're on the east side of the block. See, exactly.
That's a thing.
This is my point. High schoolers are terrible at geography.
North?
Quick. North. Yeah, north. Quick. Ruby, which direction is New York from here? Yeah, point. Where's New York?
East side, east side.
Are you sure that's east?
No.
Oh my god. Okay. Point. Point proved. That's north.
Wait, where are we at?
That exactly. That's my point. How do I know this? Because I'm not a teenager that's terrible at directions. That's north. That's east. That's south. That's west. You drive that way, you end up in the ocean. You drive that way, you also end up in the ocean. It just takes a way longer time. And it's a different ocean. No, Antarctica is definitely south. So, moral of the story, maps are good. So, on Thursday, we focused our discussion first on this Chesapeake region, where the Chesapeake Bay is, heavily with Virginia. We talked about them as their identity is rooted in cash crops. Specifically, what crop in Virginia? Tobacco. Good. Black gold. We talked about the Carolinas, which kind of started as this political utopia, but quickly devolved into the center of slave culture in the United States, with the port of Charleston importing a ton of slaves, and with it a slave identity from the Caribbean. We talked about Georgia as this dumping ground for people that are unsuccessful, as a safety or a bumper or a buffer zone between the colonies and Spanish Florida. And we talked briefly about Maryland, really only because of their important act of toleration, which is supposed to create this idea of religious tolerance, which, as we know, wasn't really that tolerant, but at least it was tolerant of some kinds of Christianity. So that's our southern colonies that we need to know. Today, I'm going to spend a lot of time on New England, the farthest northeast, and then a little bit of time on the middle colonies as well. They're just really easier to explain quickly. So the majority of our time will be in New England. So here's a map. As I showed you on slide 1 on Thursday, how is the soil in New England up here? Good soil, bad soil? Yeah, rocky soil. How's the growing season, long or short? Yeah, so not a good place for a ton of cash crop farm type of economies. So what they're going to do instead is going to be based on where they are. We're going to see a ton of timber. which is literally just the selling of wood. Why would they do that? Because they have a lot of wood. Forests, heavily wooded areas. So we see a lot of shipping of wood. We see a lot of fishing off of the coast of New England. We see a lot of shipbuilding, which makes a lot of sense. That's pretty logical. Why? They need ships because they're across the ocean from Europe, and they have wood. Done. Let's build some ships. We see a lot of rum making, because, I mean, who doesn't need a good shot of rum on Tuesday morning? We see some ironworks, because they're around natural iron deposits. So the manufacturing of iron, again, more shipbuilding, and some whaling. Some hunting and fishing of whales. Now, why? Why whales?
I got a question.
What's that? What's your question?
What if they hunt whales? Like, if they have a small arrow, like
Harpoons, a gang of people,
they actually
a
had
boat.
harpoons back then?
Bro, we're not talking about the year 400. We're talking about 400 years ago. Like, guns already exist.
Oh,
Why whales?
Blubber.
Blubber. Why else?
They're
Oil. It's an early lighting source. Whale oil is very early source of fuel for lamps. So yes, they're not cavemen that are trying to kill the whales with sticks, but we also don't have electricity yet. We're somewhere in between those two things, right? We're past caveman stage, pre-electricity stage. So the whale oil is for, yes sir.
Did they use makeup?
Some it's only for the very, very, very high class. Men and women, more powder than makeup. You're gonna see everyone looks very like fresh, like rosy cheeks and really, really white faces, kind of like me regularly. Yeah, powdered wigs. Yeah. So it's important we understand that geographically speaking, it's not an area that's great for farming, so they do non-farming type things. Non-farming type things. Now the first people to settle in the New England area, the first white people, let's clarify, because the Native Americans have been there for generations. The first Europeans to settle are going to come from England on the Mayflower. The year is 1620. The year is 1620, so about 13 years after Jamestown. 13 years. And half of them are going to be separatists. The other half are going to be called Puritans. Let me differentiate these two for you. Both groups are upset with the Church of England. This group wants to separate entirely from the Church of England and make their own church, hence separate. This group wants to stay in the Church of England but purify it, but get rid of all the other things that are happening that aren't solely fundamentally biblical. So they want to purify or fix the existing Church of England. They want to separate entirely. It's not necessarily important in the grand scheme of things, but both of them have issues with the Church of England and how they're practicing religion, so they bounce. They bounce. Now, if you can take your eyes over here to my map, they negotiate with the Virginia Company. And they say to the people that are, because Virginia, they need people, right? We talked about that on Thursday. Virginia's struggling with Native American attacks. People are dying from disease. So in Virginia, they're like, hey, you can come do whatever your little religious thing is. You can do it here in our territory if you want to. So they're like, cool, we'll do that. We'll go meet you guys in Virginia. Unfortunately, I'm going to circle Virginia. There's the Virginia territory. You with me? The Mayflower lands here. Is that anywhere close to Virginia? No. Now keep in mind too, this is the 1600s, so there's no roads, there's no cars, there's no airplanes, there's no trains, there's no nothing, there's no infrastructure. So right now, that's like a 10-hour drive in 2018. Back then, that's really, really, really far. All right, I told you guys last week that with technology, the world shrinks. At that time, that's still really, really, really far away. Nope, wagon on what? On what road? Just like whatever. There it is. Go through the mountains. There it is. I have to draw those mountains back up here again. So, moral of the story, they just land there, and they are way far from Virginia, so therefore they have no permission to be there. They don't have permission from the English government to be there. Of course, they don't have permission from the Native Americans to be there. They're just there. But winter is coming. They're like, well, we're here. we might as well just stay. They don't really have any sense for how far they are away either. Plymouth Bay, where they land, is far outside the control or the jurisdiction of Virginia, so they're kind of just out there on their own. They become squatters without any sort of legal right to the land. England has not granted them permission to go and make their own new colony. They're supposed to be in Virginia with the other colony. So they're just there, and they have no authority to establish a government either. England hasn't told them they can make a new government, nothing. They're supposed to be in Virginia. As you can see, they are not in Virginia. What they do, however, before they even get off the boat, is they write what's called the Mayflower Compact. Now, if there's maybe, I'd argue, 60, maybe 70 documents that you're going to have to know what they are by the end of the year. Not memorized, not you have to know every word of them, but when you see them on, for example, a DBQ or a multiple choice question, you won't have to worry about reading it because you'll know exactly what that document is. All right, this is the core 60, would you agree, 60 or 70? And if I just told you right now, you'd know what they are? Like Declaration of Independence, Gettysburg Address, right? William Jennings Bryan Cross the Gold Speech. You see what I'm saying? Letter from Birmingham Jail. The Mayflower Compact is the first of those documents that you're really going to have to know, and it's nice because it's short. Now, what is a compact? Ruby, what's a compact? Not like a makeup compact. Actually, question about makeup.
Like a contract?
Yeah.
Like a document?
A contract or an agreement. So they're here. I told you things are named very accurately in English. It's an agreement signed on the Mayflower. What are we going to call it? The Mayflower Compact. Done. So it's November of 1620, and it's written and signed before they even get off the boat. They're on the boat. They're about to roll onto shore. They don't know where the hell they are. And they're going to figure out, like, we got to do something to really figure out what we're going to do. And it's kind of a constitution. It's not a constitution because it lacks formality and structure of government, but it's something along the lines of a written constitution to form a rough government, to set some purpose for what they're going to do. And very, very, very importantly, that everybody on the boat is going to submit to majority rule. That even if you don't like something, you're going to submit to it because the majority of your peers agreed to it. Majority rule is a hallmark of democracy. Not everybody likes everything that the government does, believe me. But when you submit to majority rule, you're saying, well, the majority of people in the country have spoken, so I'm going to be along for the ride. It's signed by 41 adult males on the Mayflower, and it really is one of the first examples of written down democracy in American history. And what it leads to is what's going to be a hallmark, a trademark of New England characteristics, which is colonial assemblies, town assemblies, where every little town in New England is going to have a little legislature, and they're going to make decisions as a group, majority rule. Which sounds very elementary now, but of course when you're leaving monarchical England, this is a big deal because it allows for some self-rule. So, we're going to read it. We're going to read it. It's very short, it's just this first box. And I'm not asking you to answer a question this time either. I'm asking you to identify the key words in here, in this whole text, that better help us understand the motivation for colonization. What are the words that help us get our minds around who these people are and what they're doing and why they're doing it? I'm going to give you 5, 4 to identify and put them in the column, and then 1 to share with the person next to you. While you're doing that, I'm going to call roll real slowly while I figure out who's sitting where, and that way you guys are on a seating chart, and I never have to call roll again. Time's ticking. Get reading. Rubia. You like the seat? Even though you're whistling. Oh, thank you. Kelly. Luis. You like that spot?
Where?
Right, one to your side.
No. Yeah, cool.
Cool. Alejandro? Here.
Say he wants to see next.
Does he? Good for him. Where does Daniel usually sit?
Right here.
Chris Cortez. Is that okay with you? You gotta sit next to this guy, I'm sorry. Brenda. Brenda? Corner? You okay back there? You can see okay? Eli? You good right there?
Yeah.
Breathe. Ruby, you have it? Christoph, you good there?
Yeah.
Okay. Jaira, cool there? Yeah. You gotta sit by alternate, but it's not so bad. Ash? Should we put you in your brother's seat? You know where he's at? Right here. Kaylee? Is that okay? Caesar? Can you see from that far away? Can you see over Ruby from there? Good. Better? You cool there? Araceli? You cool there? Linda? Aziri? Desi? No way? You happy? I'm gonna expect you guys next class.
Yep. You look at him every day.
I have to look at you too. I look at all you guys. I feel.
You get to.
I get to. It's a privilege. Louisa? Happy? Even though you can't check your email? Jenry, you're good? Jonathan, you happy there?
Yeah. But Luis, I had a question.
What's that, Luis?
Thomas right here next to
Yes.
Josue.
You okay with him?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. Cool. Thanks, guys. Sorry about that. All right, take the last minute and share with your partner. What are some of the words that really stood out to you in terms of getting to their motivation and their meaning? All right. Why are they there? And how do we better understand why based on some of their words? Go.
Comment like the word according to the plan of the first colony, and also covenant and combine ourselves.
The only one I got was the first colony was participation. That's innovation.
Yes. Yes.
It just, it sounds like when you extra, like, it's like you keep adding numbers, but just sounds like that's not really good. They keep adding stuff on it, okay,
All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. No, wait, talk to me. What really, like, did you zero in on that helps us understand who these people are and what they're all about?
Well, it's just for the glory of God and advancement of the Christian faith.
Boom. The first, good job, Noe. Thank you. The first thing they identify for their motivation has nothing to do with politics or their country or gold or glory or calling, any of that. That they are doing this for the glory of God and the advancement of the Christian faith. That really zeroes in on their motivation. Right? Before they even mention, oh yeah, and there's also king and country, and we're going to make a colony in the parts of North, they think they're in Virginia. They're not anywhere near Virginia. They're talking at the very, very good job, very, very beginning about glorifying God. Christoph, what else? What other words or phrases in here help us understand their motivation at the deepest level?
When it says enact, constitute, and frame says just and equal laws, ordinance, acts, constitutions, and offices from time to time.
Okay. What about that do you think helps us understand their motivation?
Well, at least for the reason why I thought that was like
Just and equal laws,
just
okay.
where you talk about equal laws, ordinance, acts, constitutions, and offices from time to time.
Okay. So they're going to create a society that's based on equality. And what does it mean to be just?
Fair.
Fair. Good job. Good job. Okay, cool. That's an important one. And then how are they going to make these laws? By meeting for the general... Ooh, this is a good one. General good. They're going to meet and discuss and decide, not for Brett's good, Eli's good, but for the general good. Did we see any real notion of the general good in our documents about Jamestown?
No, it was
It was kind of one for one. Yeah, every man for themselves. And here we have, before we even get off the boat, general good. Cool. Cool, cool. Go ahead, thank you, sir.
Also, in addition to the first sentence is in the name of God, amen.
Yeah, right. Who put the amen at the beginning? I don't even know how to pray about it. That was the beginning. But yeah, you're right. Okay, there's a couple other things in here I want to pull out, though. Hilda, what else